Before we kick off this episode, I want to say we are not professionals of any kind. We are just two folks who want to talk about our 25 plus years of marriage and Jesus. Thanks for listening.
Hey, babe, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So it's been a while. We got busy in between the second and third leg of our trip. So we've had a lot of stuff going on. Not an excuse, just life. So
for the two listeners we have out there, thank y'all for being so patient.
You've been waiting on
both of you.
You've both been waiting on the edge of your seat for this, and we kept you waiting for what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
I mean, we had Thanksgiving. We were out that week, and then you were out of town, and then
you're leaving tomorrow to go out of town.
Yeah,
for a
so
while.
we're having to squeeze this in because I'm leaving. I'm going out of town. We've just been busy doing stuff, and so,
well, December is busy for us anyway because of birthdays and then Christmas and stuff.
Well, do you have any God winks? Yeah, you have a God wink. You have a husband that drove you to work one night when it was sub-0 degrees.
That of course, you're always awesome about doing that kind of stuff for me, but also the timing of being able to get my new car that's an all-wheel drive SUV now, and I'm not, because having to drive in the weather the last few weeks, I would have been a basket case if I still had my little Mazda 3, but it's been nice having the Highlander and not really having to worry too much about sliding around because it has the extra snow button, which a lot of people think when you hit the snow button, it makes it snow, but that's not the case. It helps you on the icy roads.
Yeah.
But
so my God wink comes from, we talked about some of the reasons we haven't been here. 1 week was Thanksgiving. 1 week you were out of town. One of the other weeks was we had pretty much stuff to do with Joshua every single night of that week. He had a football banquet. Then the next night we met with like his electric.
It's like an open house for his electrician
stuff. Yeah. But one of the things I think is pretty cool, and one of my God winks is, so those of you that know, Joshua is playing football this year. This is his first year he's played like through the school. So he's playing football, and they had their awards banquet where, it's like all the kids that have played forever get their awards for rushing 10,000 yards and all that kind of stuff. But I knew he wasn't going to get any of those awards because this is his first year, so he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. But I thought it was really cool at the end of the night, they gave all these special awards away and the awards were named of other, past players that had passed away or moved on, that kind of thing. And so one of the awards that they gave out was an award for this, in honor of this kid that died in a car wreck last year, but the kid apparently had, a lot of character and a lot of, that kind of stuff. So the award was basically for the player who had a lot of character and, was just kind of a go-getter. And Joshua won that award. And the coach had talked about one of the reasons he won was because, he joined his senior year and he knew he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time, but he was still one of the most motivational kids on the team, and just he always showed up and always had a smile on his face. And so I just thought that was kind of cool. And
well, I think one of the coolest thing that coaches said when he presented the award was that Joshua was the first one on the sidelines when the players came off the field to tell him, that was a good play, you did a good job. So it speaks volumes that he was that encouraging, knowing that there were games he didn't play at all, and so I told him, I told Joshua, I said, you can teach throwing and catching and that kind of stuff, but you can't teach character and encouragement. So I just thought that was one of the coolest awards, and I'm glad that he got it.
Yeah. So that's my God wink. And so I guess we can just jump right into our episode.
Welcome to Loving Our 25 to Life. I'm Heather.
And I'm Bo. Together we've been married over 25 years.
Yeah, baby!
And this is where we talk about life, love, and all the adventures we have had along the way.
Whether we're sharing stories from our marriage or taking you along one of our trips, we're here to reflect on how we've made it this far and where we are headed next.
So grab a seat, settle in, and let's dive into another episode of Loving Our 25 to Life.
Okay, so if you've been following the past 2 episodes, we talked about our Whirlwind trip that Heather and I decided to take this year. And those that know us, you know that we do like to take vacations. We like to take a break. We like to get away. But this year we decided to do a little bit different. Instead of going to the beach or going somewhere, we decided we were going to make this whirlwind trip around and visit lots of family, visit friends. And so we went down to Baton Rouge. We went over to Katy, Texas. And the last leg of that trip, was the one I was looking forward to the most, not because I don't appreciate family, because I love your family that's down in Baton Rouge and New Orleans area. I love your brother and his family. But I had been to Colorado once when you and I were in college, and I went back a few years ago to work on a film with my buddy Steve. And I just love that area. I love the area of Colorado. I love the mountains. I love just that whole Wyoming, Montana, Colorado vibe. So just getting to go there. And then a bonus is that one of my best friends from high school, or from, not high school, from middle school, elementary school, high school, just one of my best childhood friends, Jonah, he lives in Colorado and has been for a couple of years. And so the bonus was getting to see him and his wife and all that kind of stuff. So why don't you
Gus.
And Gus, that was the goodest boy, Gus.
He's a sweet boy.
And Duchess, she was the goodest girl. But why don't you talk about, I do want to talk about our trip there. There's a couple of things I want to highlight, but do you want to start us off with heading up to Colorado?
Yeah, so we left Katy, Texas, kind of early in the morning, not super early. I would have about 9 o'clock is when we left.
Yeah.
And we drove for 13 hours before we decided to stop. And 13 hours later, we're still in Texas.
Yes.
So we spent the night in
Dalhart,
Texas, and then got up early the next morning and headed out. It was so cold, but it was funny and cool all at the same time, that it was almost like, Texas was so flat and boring. And then you, like, for miles and miles and miles, just fields and flatness and all that. And then it was almost as soon as you saw the Welcome to New Mexico sign, we started seeing all these beautiful, like, rocky mountains and the time of day there was a lot of mist and fog and stuff over it. And so we pulled over a couple of times and took pictures, and it was really kind of cool. Driving through New Mexico was pretty cool. And they had those big turbines that were, they had a lot of them, and they were huge. I never realized how big they were. And then we got into Colorado, and of course more mountains. And Colorado was fun because it would be like nothing, mountains, but nothing. And then all of a sudden you'd hit a big city like Denver or
Colorado Springs,
or Pueblo or whatever. And then you'd get back to nothing, and then big city. And then so it was kind of interesting to do that.
The 2 things I wanted to point out going from Katy to Colorado, we were going to be going through Dalhart, Texas, and that's actually where we ended up staying the night, which I'm kind of glad we did. I had a friend who I met in my early 20s. We were
William Carey.
weren't we?
No.
No.
Right after.
It was right after we were married. So, but we weren't married long. So, in my early 20s, I met this kid. He's not a kid. little bit younger than us, but his name was Damon Whaley. And we met this guy. Heather and I went with some friends of ours to see a comedian who was not funny at all. He was kind of a jerk, actually, and not in a jerk way, like, you know,
Trying to be funny jerk. He was just not very nice.
Not a nice guy. But anyway, my friend, or this guy, Damon Whaley, opened up for him, and this kid was funny. I mean, he was really funny. So it actually happened that the friends we went to this concert with knew the main guy. And so after their concert was over, the main guy invited all of us out to dinner, you know, to kind of celebrate. I think it was into their tour or something like that. So Heather and I sat with this guy, Damon, and we got to talking, and he and Heather became really good friends. And so we kept up with each other for years and years. And he lived close to us at the time, but he's from Dalhart, Texas. And so about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, he moved back to Texas, and he and I would keep up periodically, but not, you know, just, you know, texting each other. And we had that kind of relationship that we would just text each other inappropriate things, like, you know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that the reason we click so much with him is people that know us know that we have a really different sense of humor. Yeah. And it's very seldom that you find somebody with that same different sense of humor. And Damon was one of those. So we could just sit and talk and feed off each other for hours.
Well, one of the things that Damon and I used to talk about we used to do, we had this thing where I don't even know where it came from, but we had this thing that he would just say something stupid and say, write that down to me. And, you know, I would say something stupid back to him and say, write that down. So every time we texted each other or whatever, we would end it with, write that down. Mm-hmm. So just cool, good guy. Well, anyway, about, I think 2022, he lost his life in a car wreck, automobile accident. And so I'd wanted to get out and see him before that, and I never got the opportunity, which I regret. But anyway, we were able to spend the night in Dalhart, which is where he lived. And I wanted to go by his gravesite, but his gravesite was like 2 hours in the opposite direction. So we didn't get to do that, but we were able to kind of go by the site of where he lost his life and kind of pay respect. So that was a neat part of the trip. And Dalhart was kind of a nice, he didn't hate it, but I mean, it was home for him, but he was like, there's nothing special about it, but it's cool. We're in the middle of watching like Landman,
Yellowstone
and all that. So Dalhart looks exactly like it would come out of like Landman. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But anyway, the other thing is, and I think didn't we touch on this in one of our other episodes about getting pulled over?
Yeah, we talked about it in one of ours. So if you want to hear about Bo getting pulled over for not speeding, but speeding. I
did. I got pulled over, and but the guy I think we talked about all this, but the guy was super cool.
Nice,
he and Heather hit it off, because I think those emergency people, when they get together, they, you know, like to talk. I know every time I go out to eat with Heather and friends, if one of them is something medical, they will talk and talk.
But if there's somebody that speaks bourbon there.
Yeah, I try to find bourbon people. So anyway, we got into town, and my friend Jonah, the last time I saw him was whenever I was in Colorado with my buddy Steve filming. But aside from that, and I mean, I had lunch with him one day during that trip, but aside from that, I haven't seen Jonah since probably right out of high school. So we didn't lose touch. I mean, we've kept up over Facebook, but you know, we hadn't been able to just, you know, kind of see each other and hang out and stuff. So it was that part of the trip was just really cool, catching up with him, meeting his wife, meeting his kids, or one of his kids. And then Jonah is an outdoorsy type person. He's always camping and hiking and fishing and hunting and all this stuff. So he knows every inch of like the Colorado wilderness. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that we were able to go out and see the landscape and see the mountains and see the animals and all that stuff. And so he really, really, really pulled through on that.
So on that Saturday, we went into the state park up there, and it was of course, you know, we've been to the Smoky Mountains a lot, but these mountains were different and they were beautiful. But the main thing is there was nobody there. Like when you go to Cades Cove or something now, there's so many people, but there was, I mean, we saw maybe 2 other people the whole day.
In fairness, though, the government was shut down at that point, and so probably a lot of folks weren't out because they didn't know if the
maybe
parks would
but
be
it was
closed.
it was just so pretty. And there was one part where he took his way up, and I think you saw it. I was sitting in the back, but one of y'all said there's a bald eagle. So we pulled over and we stopped and got out, and it was so quiet up there that when the bald eagle took off to took off from like his perch, went down into the water, I guess was trying to grab a fish, but when it was flying back to its perch, I could hear the wings flapping, and I'm like, that is so awesome. So we stayed there about 15 minutes, because then we realized there was another one on another perch, and so we watched them for about 15 minutes or so. And that was like the coolest. The whole day was really cool, but to me that was the coolest part of the day, is hearing the wings of the bald eagle. Just, I don't know, it was kind of like I was in a National Geographic episode or something.
The thing I love about the Rocky Mountains, you know, people will say, man, you know, the Smoky Mountains, that's God's country and it's so beautiful. And it is. Mm-hmm. I love the Smoky Mountains. The thing about the Rocky Mountains is they're probably just as high as the Smoky Mountains, but when your ground level is already a mile above sea level, and then you go up, that's where all of the the foliage doesn't exist. So they're rocky. I mean, the mountains are rocky. They're not covered in trees. And
the other thing we learned is that when you're that high up, you have to not drink as much.
Oh, for sure.
First night we got there, of course, Bo's brought all this bourbon to show Jonah that we can only get from Kentucky. And then Jonah had a lot of stuff that he had got in Colorado. And so the first night, you know, we're sipping and taste testing. And I mean, I didn't have much to drink at all. And next thing I knew, I don't even remember half the night. And I woke up the next day and I'm like, what the heck happened? And Jonah said, I forgot to tell you. When you're up this high. So that's one thing that, you know, you have to learn, is when you have to drink plenty of water, period, whether you drink alcohol or not. And then you get drunker faster. So I was not because of the alcohol, but I was super dizzy the first few days and short of breath. You get short of breath a lot quicker because the air is so much more dense, I guess. But yeah, lesson learned. I didn't drink the next night at all. They were trying to get me to drink. And I'm like, no, I had enough last night.
Yeah, it was good. So Jonah, he's a bourbon guy like I am, and so we got to swap whiskeys and share stories, and which kind of leads me to another point of why we decided we wanted to go to Colorado. While I was in Colorado with filming with my buddy a couple years ago, I got to know some of the distillers up there. We had gone to, I think that film, we actually went to 4 or 5 distilleries up there. And I became really good friends with my buddy Lenny, who owns Deerhammer. And so Deerhammer, that distillery is in Buena Vista, Colorado, which is kind of, Denver is the Mile High City, and it's on the kind of the plains. But, you know, once you get into the mountains, that's where Buena Vista is. And so it was just beautiful driving from Jonah's house up the mountain, and then getting to hang out with my buddy Lenny, and he treated us like kings and queens. He let us, we did a kind of he
and
was
again,
busy.
A taste test. I was like 2 sips in, and I was like, I don't know. It was wild, but go ahead. Sorry.
He was busy when we first got there, but after he got through with his meetings and stuff, he invited us over to the Rick House, and we just tasted out of the barrel. And I mean, it was an awesome time.
They tasted out of the barrel. I sat in the corner with Donna and talked to her while y'all were over there.
I will say this. There's been twice in my life where I've gone to a distillery and we've had to sit in the car for a little while before we went anywhere. And that was one of them, because so we're even higher in elevation than we were at Jonah's house. You know, Jonah's right outside of Denver. And so we're even higher up in the mountains. So it hits a lot different, but Deerhammer, that's one of my favorite distilleries in
That was a lot of
America.
fun. And that little town that it's in is so cute. If it wasn't so cold, I could have walked around there forever.
It's like that town is like something you would see in like a Hallmark movie or something. It's,
and we saw the St. Bernard puppies.
Yep.
That was cute.
Yeah, the St. Bernard puppies, they were cute. There was this couple walking down the street and they had 2 adults, or was it just the mom or something?
I think it was the mom.
But then there was like a
3 puppies.
Yeah, little puppies. The people weren't nice at all. The puppies were super nice.
I still pet the puppies.
The guy was not nice. The lady she was okay. But yeah, it was super cool. And then driving back, we got to see, of course, if you know me, I have to stop and pee like every 5 minutes. And so we were on our way back and we're in the middle of nowhere and I had to pee so bad. So we pulled over on the side of the road and there was we pulled over where this, like cattle farm was. Literally looks like something out of Yellowstone. It was, as far as you could see in either direction, was nothing but fields of cows. And of course, I'm getting ready to go to the bathroom, and then somebody happens to be coming up the driveway leaving, and so I had to postpone for a little while. But yeah, it was just a great trip. It was getting to see things, and of course, Jonah he took me the next day. Heather wanted to stay home and kind of relax. But the next day, he and I went up into Wyoming and we went into Estes Park, which is, I think I'm right when I say this, it's part of the national park system. And so we went into Estes Park and I got a lot of beautiful pictures, and we got to see, my 2 things I wanted to see were elk and moose. And we didn't see a moose at all, but we saw
that one moose.
It was a statue.
Oh.
But so we saw a few elk in the park.
A few? Geez.
Well, no. They were in the park. There was only like 1 or 2, but they were kind of far off. And then my buddy Jonah said, since we're out this way, there's this little town I want to take us to, and they have the best little donut shop. And I said, that's good to me. So we go to this donut shop, and it's in this little town, kind of like where Deerhammer is, one of those little mountain towns. And there are about 50 elk walking around the town. They're just walking up and down the street. Cars are having to stop what they're doing because they can't get by. And then, of course, me being the tourist with the camera, I'm like, Jonah, I've got to jump out. And he's like, dude, that's not a good idea. And I said, I won't get near him. I got the zoom lens. I won't get near him. So I jumped out of the car and I was taking pictures. And these idiots, they were literally, there was these 2 girls, these like Instagram type girls, and they were walking up to the elk and like doing their little selfies with them. And the female elk, they were like stomping, to warn them away. And so then the bucks were coming around, and Jonah said, it's time to get out of here, because once these bucks, they start going wild, then they're going to attack everything. And so we got out of there. But I mean, it was so cool to see them like that close. I mean, I literally could reach out and touch them if I wanted to. But
I know when you sent me that video, I was like, golly, I'd be wanting to pet that elk. Can I pet your elk?
Can I pet that elk? But yeah, it was. But Jonah said, up there, it's just common for that to happen. Just them, they were there was like a playground. They were just taking up the playground, and I mean, it was super cool. So, Colorado is one of those places that I would love to. I mean, I'd visit there every year. I mean, Heather and I are already talking about going back out that way and hitting Montana and maybe going to Yellowstone National Park. I don't know if I'd want to live there just because of, I don't know, it's different, but it's such a beautiful place. It
is gorgeous. And the view outside of their back porch was amazing. And they were doing, what was it? They were harvesting there's a field behind, like if you're sitting on their porch, you can look out and there's a field, and they were harvesting some kind of beets.
Oh yeah, beet. It was a beet farm.
Yeah, and it was so cool watching the trucks pull up the beets and dump them into another truck. It was really cool.
Yeah, so we got that's one of the things. I guess they just happened to be harvesting that weekend we were there. So when we get there, it's cool to me that, and I mean, I guess all farms do this. I mean, it's not, but it was cool that you had this huge farm behind there, and you had the tractors pulling up the beets, and then these 18-wheelers would literally just drive through the dirt, get right beside the harvester, and it would fill the back of the truck up. And then when that was full, it would take off, and the next one come right up behind it. And so it's pretty cool. And then the way their backyard is, you literally look directly over the beet farm, and then in the distance was this huge mountain range. Mm-hmm. It was so beautiful, and I'm sure I'll put a picture up.
And then when y'all were gone Sunday, I went out there to do something outside, and I looked over, and there was this hot air balloon landing. So I got to watch a hot air balloon land in the yard way away from us, but that was pretty cool.
So yeah, it was and then the whole time, so Jonah has 2 dogs. One's a French bulldog named Duchess, and she was so cute. And then he has a lab. It's a lab mix, or
I think he's a full-blooded
lab.
1 year old.
Gus, and he was so funny because he was 4 times the size of the French bulldog, but he would bite her and then run around, and then every time he bit her, she sounded like a squeak toy. She would squeak, and he would run around to the other side, and he was so awesome. But
what we didn't realize, because I was like, how does the little dog not get hurt? But when they showed us pictures of when they first brought Gus home, he was actually smaller than her. So I guess they learned to play together when they were both little. And then now he doesn't realize he's 10 times bigger than she is. And but she was still ruled the roost.
Yeah, for sure.
When she was tired of playing, she gave it to him, and he'd leave her alone. It was a good trip, and I was glad to be home. And now we're looking forward to, in a couple of months, we're going on our Caribbean cruise, and
we'll have to.
Excited about that.
Yeah, if you know anything about us, we either like to go to the beach
or go to the mountains.
We did several years. We went on cruises because, I mean, it's kind of cheap for the family. I mean, if we don't, no matter where we go, we don't eat at the expensive restaurants. We don't do all that stuff. So I hear people say, like, I would cruise, but it's too expensive. And we don't do all the extra stuff. But to pay for like 10 days of being gone when you go see all these other places, and your food's included and all that, you can't beat that. And we try to go at a time where it's like not peak season, right. So the tickets
there aren't any hurricanes out there,
$300 a person versus $1,000. So yeah, that's how and why we go where we go. We go at cheaper times, and so but the idea is we just like to break away from reality sometimes and go see family or go see places we've never been. And that's kind of what this trip was about. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed our 3-episode, 2-episode, then 3-week break, then 1 episode of our trip. All right, babe, that's it. So I guess we'll talk next week.
All right. Love you.
I love you.
That's it for today's episode of Loving Our 25 to Life. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found something to take with you on your own journey.
Remember, love is an adventure. Sometimes it's wild, sometimes it's calm, but it's always worth it. Yes! If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who might need a little inspiration.
And don't forget to follow along for more episodes and vlogs documenting our travels, life lessons, and hopefully plenty of laughs.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep loving life because it is the greatest adventure of all. Bye for now.